I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually.
This was actually one of the finer hours for Donald Trump.
He asked about your comment calling the president a fascist, and your answer was, well, President Trump and I have been clear about our positions and our views. Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay, you can just say yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, it's easier. It's easier than explaining it, I don't mind.
That's weird. That, of course, is Zohran Mamdani, the incoming mayor of New York, with Donald Trump. They're meeting up, and I think most people expected it would be like really contentious, and certainly the questions were. I mean, a tough question to Zohran Mamdani: do you stand by your labeling Donald Trump as a fascist? And he jumps in to help out Zohran Mamdani. That's strange.
Yeah, no. This was actually one of the finer hours for Donald Trump. So press tried to get them to fight a couple of times. Mamdani did a great job of deflection. You'll see it in a second. But Trump did an even better job of going, no, we're not going to fight. It was kind of amazing. And after you see all the videos of it, and you'll see what I'm talking about, there was one tough question that Mamdani had. Then I want you to vote on the poll on TYT.com. If Trump and Zohran were to be in a movie or a show together, which one would it be?
Oh my God.
A, Odd Couple, makes sense. B, Bosom Buddies. C, do people remember Bosom Buddies? Okay.
Before my time.
It's got Tom Hanks in it.
Perfect Strangers is what I would go for.
And cross-dressing, but anyway. C, Harold and Kumar go to White Castle, or maybe the White House. And D, Trading Places. So have fun with that poll on TYT.com. All right, now let's give you all the videos and facts.
Oh my God, yeah. And I don't believe, by the way, just to Mamdani's credit, I don't think he backed off in that question, and he shouldn't. He's 100% right. Trump is a fascist. Whether he's like chuckling and like patting you or whatever, still a fascist. But either way, they had previously been very harsh in their criticism of each other. Mamdani called Trump a despot and a walking avatar of New York City's corrupt landlords and culture of corruption. He is dead on in that. I think that's a great label. He also stated, I am Donald Trump's worst nightmare as a progressive Muslim immigrant who actually fights for the things that I believe in. And so that's Mamdani. Trump had said, he looks terrible, his voice is grating, he's not very smart. And I think, wait, is he talking about himself? No, I guess he was technically talking about Zohran there. It doesn't make as much sense that way, but I guess that's what it was. And he had also said, it is my strong conviction that New York City will be a complete and total economic and social disaster should Mamdani win. And so that's the sort of thing that a lot of right-wingers were saying over and over and over and over again. And Trump certainly got in on that up until today. Today, he had kind of a different way of talking about the future of New York.
I mean, he's got views that are out there, but who knows? I mean, we're going to see what works, or he's going to change also. We all change. I change a lot. I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually. And some very liberal people, he won't surprise them because they already like him.
Would you feel comfortable living in New York City under a Mamdani administration?
Yeah, I would. I really would, especially after the meeting. Absolutely.
What makes you comfortable?
We agree on a lot more than I would have thought. I think I want him to do a great job.
Mr. President, Republican Elise Stefanik has campaigned multiple times by calling Zohran Mamdani a jihadist. Do you think you're standing next to a jihadist right now in the Oval Office?
No, I don't, but she's out there campaigning, and you say things sometimes in a campaign. I met with a man who's a very rational person.
I love that. And look, by the way, he's honest about Elise Stefanik. He's like, yeah, you just, you're campaigning. Say whatever the hell you want, who cares? Declare that someone's a terrorist. It's just politics or whatever. And so, yeah, she was mad. By the way, Laura Loomer was very mad about that meeting, saying that he's in there with a jihadist. And it's like, he's been with lots of jihadists recently. Mamdani's by far the least jihadist of the people he's been meeting with recently. What is your problem? But anyway, look, that was a pretty fascinating meeting. Ken Klippenstein summed it up saying Trump is being nicer to Mamdani than Democratic leadership was, LOL, which is definitely true. My theory, Cenk, I'm curious if you agree, is I think he has now absorbed that Mamdani is genuinely very popular. I think he has seen the affordability thing break through. He tried to like dust it off, laugh it off, and now he's trying to claim that he's the one that's for affordability. I think he's actually charmed by Mamdani, who is a charming guy, and partially I think it's he wants to get some of the shine. I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was one of Trump's finer hours because, and I get the way that Trump acts. So he fights, and to your point about, it's just a campaign. You tell people that Haitians eat cats and dogs. It's a lie, but it's just a way to get people to hate Haitian immigrants. It's just a campaign. Nah, you're not supposed to do that, right? But does Trump do that all the time? Yes, but the good news out of that's the bad news. The good news out of that is that once the fight is over, Trump is pretty good at reconciliation. So if you were skeptical about that, you certainly saw it today. There's still another tough question coming up for Mamdani, but I thought it was a fair question. And Trump from time to time stepped in, defended Mamdani, not time to time for actually most of it. I mean, you've already seen a couple of pretty spectacular examples of it. And so, look, there's so much I want to talk about. So number one, on the stuff that they kept going back to, is he a fascist, right? So, look, I think that there's a spectrum of words: authoritarian, then fascist, then Nazi. Right? So I've never gone to Nazi. Nazi is very particular. It involves killing about 13 million people, etc., or some sort of genocide, Holocaust, etc. I've never gone there with Trump because I don't think that's fair. I think that's the end of the road, right? So I have said fascist before, and then it becomes a question of what is a fascist versus an authoritarian? Does Donald Trump have authoritarian tendencies? Look, I think in the rational world that is inarguable, right? So, and we just saw it yesterday. These Democratic senators and congressmen made a video about me saying don't follow an illegal order. That's it, call for death. What is that? Okay, I'm gonna roll out the military into the streets. I'm gonna make sure that they're not wearing badges and masks when it's ICE. Just every instinct he has, including literally saying after he lost the 2020 election, we should terminate the Constitution, is these huge, obvious, unmistakable authoritarian tendencies, right? Now, if you want to get, your feelings hurt by the word fascist and you don't like it, okay, fine. I don't really care. I don't care what it's called. I care that he not go in an authoritarian direction, right? Or you're in the camp of, no, you have to call him fascist, otherwise my feelings are gonna get hurt. Fine, either way, I don't really care. I care about the results. And the things that he does in office that deeply concern me is when he ignores the Constitution, he ignores the laws, he kills people in boats without even knowing their names, without any due process. That is a massive violation of our Constitution and of international law. So you could call it whatever name you want, but that is a deeply problematic issue for Trump. The number one problematic issue. Okay, now, but he does have moments where he goes, bygones be bygones, right? Here's the most spectacular case of it. It's not Mamdani, it's his own vice president, JD Vance. Because Mamdani never called him Nazi. I don't even know if he's called him fascist, but and he certainly never called him Hitler, but Trump's vice president did. He called Trump America's Hitler. And Trump's like, whatever, who cares? You want to be vice president? So he's good at that. He is. So that doesn't mean you like the other things about Trump. You could be honest about different parts, right? And you don't have to love Zohran's economic policies to say, hey, you know what? He's got a good point about F the status quo, F the establishment. Let's go for change. Maybe I don't like the kind of change Zohran's giving, right? And I don't like the things he said about Trump. I don't like the things he said about X, Y, or Z, but the prices are out of control in New York, and he wants to have a run at affordability, and I care about affordability. So that is how you begin to bring people together, no matter what terrible things they've said about each other in the past. And this was just really, I'm not trying to oversell it. My sense of it was this was a pretty spectacular example of it from both sides, from Trump and Mamdani. But since Trump is the president and known for ripping people's faces off, him coming in to rescue Mamdani a couple times, going, who cares if he calls me a fascist? And John, the other thing is, he's legendary for being thin-skinned, right? Yeah. And here he wasn't. So it was like, part of the reason I'm giving him so much credit is, one, I think he really did earn it. Two, I'm kind of stunned by it.
Yeah, he is very thin-skinned. Yeah, he can reconcile, especially with like some Republicans, like you pointed out what Vance said about him. He had briefly, I don't know if he's still reconciled with DeSantis, but he had reconciled. DeSantis had said some things about him, had challenged him and all that. And that's definitely true. There are definitely cases in which he's not very good at once the fight is over, just ending it like 2020. He couldn't just move on from that exactly. I wish he could have reconciled that a little bit easier, but yeah, it was interesting. They're now saying that they're going to work together, which is definitely, I guess, better for New York than Trump rejecting all federal funding to the city because he doesn't like the guy that got elected mayor. That would have been the authoritarian direction that you're talking about. I think it would be way too early to think that Mamdani had given him some indication that he's not going to go as far as he indicated that he would or something. We have to see. I want Mamdani to continue to do what he said he was going to do, and I hope that he will. It's still very early days. So early that like even as we were playing our B-roll and they're showing like shots of his like campaign literature, it's still a shock that he won. It's wild that he is going to be the mayor. But anyway,
Sorry, I'm gonna interrupt one more time because I forgot to mention the jihadist line, right? So look, there's Laura Loomer, unsurprisingly, he's Muslim, so he's a jihadist. Not remotely true, not within a million miles of true, deeply anti-Muslim thing to say. I don't love the word Islamophobe. I don't think people are like that scared. They're just more hate Muslims than are afraid of them, but like Laura Loomer despises Muslims, and then she'll always cry about anti-Semitism. Like it's, you said something that it could be a dog whistle, could be a cat whistle, a parakeet whistle, I don't know, but that your life should be ruined over it. I despise all Muslims; they're all jihadists, and I'm going to smear all of them.
It's wild.
Do you not see it? And what's amazing is for her and Israel First, they're like, yeah, we see it, who cares? In fact, we're trying to smear Muslims so you don't hate us, you hate them instead. And when our beloved Israel kills them, you don't mind, right? So I want you to understand what a deep racist pile of dung Laura Loomer is and all the people going in that direction. And once again, Donald Trump did not go in that direction.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
You're right. It's a little bit harder for him to do it after he had an actual jihadist play basketball in the White House a couple of days ago and sprayed him with cologne and stuff. So, but that guy, former Al Qaeda, now supported by Turkey and Israel, so we're good with it.
Exactly, yeah. And Donald Trump doesn't. Donald Trump, I don't think really cares about ideology really at all, ever. He doesn't care about any of this stuff. So much of the stuff that the right or MAGA gets so worked up over, I don't genuinely think Donald Trump cares at all. I don't think he's sitting at home stewing about DEI. I gotta do something about DEI. He doesn't care about that. He wants to make money. It's about corruption and power in the abstract. He doesn't care about that stuff. If he thinks that he can work with a guy who used to be an Al Qaeda, if he thinks that MBS, yeah, sure, MBS chops people up or whatever, but he's gonna let me make a golf course in Saudi Arabia. He doesn't care, the ideology is irrelevant, it's all business opportunities. But while in the Oval Office, Donald Trump was way friendlier than expected with Zohran Mamdani. Of course, there was media that didn't want it to be as friendly. They wanted to get in a good moment. And so for some reason, in this press conference, which is supposed to have journalists or whatever, they had Jack Posobiec there for some reason, a right-wing influencer, and he was trying to have some sort of moment with Mamdani. Take a look.
I want to know, one of the policies as well that Mayor-elect Mamdani talked a number of times about on the campaign was shifting the tax burden for property taxes from what he called minority communities to white-based communities and putting more taxes on white people. I also noticed that in your acceptance speech you didn't mention anything about America or Christians or white people in general, and so I didn't know if that was one of the policies that you guys had spoken about.
We focused on affordability, we focused on the cost of living crisis. What I will say is that I am very much interested in property tax reform because what we see right now in New York City is a system that is so inequitable that it can't even stand up in court.
But to be clear, you're continuing this idea of race-based property taxes.
No, to be very clear,
that's what you said.
No, the use of the term was a description of neighborhoods, not a description of intent.
So you intend to tax the whiter neighborhoods more?
No, we intend to create a fair property tax system because we want a New York City that is not only fair and equitable, but also one that every New Yorker can afford.
It's amazing how more even-keeled Mamdani is than I would be in that moment. I would have gone wild in that. So you have a guy who's standing amongst where journalists are supposed to be, who's not a journalist, no ethics, not one ethical bone in his body, lying about what Mamdani said. It might have been enough for many right-wingers for him to accurately describe, as we will, what Mamdani actually said. Instead, he made up terms that Mamdani has not said. He said it was gonna be race-based taxation. That is wild exaggeration over anything that Mamdani has said. Mamdani is answering his question and he's cutting in, yes you did, yeah you did. And like, what is crazy to me is Mamdani is standing next to Donald Trump there. Mamdani is being peppered by some influencer hack. Obviously biased questions intended to create a viral moment. He's interrupting him, and Mamdani is so damn presidential. It's like Barack Obama standing right there. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is asked on his plane, super relevant question, and he melts down. Quiet, piggy, he yells because a woman dares to ask him newsworthy questions. And so you have those two politicians sitting next to each other with very different levels of expectations and very different abilities to not get triggered and just melt down when they don't like something that they're being asked of. In any event, and here's maybe an opportunity for that guy, that influencer, to actually learn what Mamdani really said. So he had this homeowner policy memo where he said the administration will shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods. So you can say maybe he shouldn't have had the word whiter there at all. It's undoubtedly demographically correct. But he's not saying we're gonna take the tax burden off of people of color and put it on white people. He didn't say it's gonna be race-based taxation. He said we're gonna move it away from some of the areas that are lower class and move it to these richer and whiter neighborhoods. Which again, like if he had just read that, MAGA would have melted down. The word white is there, it's being said by a guy who's not white. That would have been enough, but it wasn't enough for him. He had to juice it up in a dishonest way.
Yeah, I hear you, but I'm so used to Posobiec's dishonesty and unfairness. He's the author of Pizzagate, right? That I thought it was a relatively normal question coming from him. So why? Because that comment does exist, the one that John just read you originally from Mamdani. And I remember covering it and saying, I really wish he hadn't said whiter. Like there's no need for the white description, right? But Mamdani handled it really well by saying that it was a description and not intent. So what he means by that is, it was a description of those neighborhoods that exist, whether we like it or not, they are richer and whiter, right? But not intent as in, I intend to go after whiter neighborhoods, right? No, they just happen to be whiter. That's not the important part. The rich is the important part because then you want to pay appropriate amount of taxes. Not about punishment, just proportionate, right? So I think that the putting white there was a distraction and he didn't need it, and it bothered me that he did it. I'm not at all surprised that a conservative would ask him about that. I would be shocked if somebody didn't ask him about that, right? He handled it pretty well. I thought the only part where Posobiec was too dishonest. Like I expect the bad framing, I expect this the intentionally wrong framing on that question. But then when he comes back and says, "Oh, so you intend for it to be whiter neighbors?" No, he said the exact opposite. Right.
Well, he also invented race-based taxation. That's nothing. That's nowhere. He just invented as if he said that. And also, I think with that performance you just saw from him there, I think is a great summation of what the purpose of people like that is, what effect they're supposed to have in politics, how they're supposed to influence politics. Because let's get to intent. So we read you that line. Jack Posobiec wants you to believe they're going after white people. Well, you don't have to like make up an intent. Zohran Mamdani in the memo says what the purpose of this is and why the policy needs to be changed. It's not an arbitrary thing where we want to take down taxes here and put them here. He explains why. He says the property tax system is under the current status quo unbalanced because assessment levels are artificially capped. So homeowners in expensive neighborhoods pay less than their fair share. It's like the payroll contribution to Social Security. We just decided, because rich people buy politicians, we're only gonna pay up to a certain amount. We're not gonna pay on the full value. If you don't have a lot of money or if you have a house that's of a moderate amount, you'll pay on the entire thing. But I'm a rich person, I don't wanna pay on the entire thing, so I'm gonna cap it. And he's saying, why don't we make it fair and equitable and uncap it on the wealthy? And that's where an influencer like Jack Posobiec comes in. He takes something that is inherently about fixing a class-based rigging of the system that currently is here and says, no, don't worry about that. I'm gonna protect the rich by pretending this is a race thing. So I'm gonna continue to allow, my goal is for rich people to continue to get away without paying their fair share. And then meanwhile, I'm gonna get poor white people to be angry to be PO'd because they think something racist is happening against them. That is the point of so much right-wing media, and you just saw it in demonstration in the Oval Office right there.
Yeah, I hear you, John. But the reason why Mamdani originally shouldn't have given them that opening was,
I agree with you about that one.
Yeah, is because like if you said about Dearborn, Michigan, there's a lot of rich Muslims there. You'd be like, why do you need the Muslim part, right? Like if your issue is rich property taxes or a lot of rich Jews in the Hamptons, we should tax more. But like, no. Why are you including the race, identity, etc.?
I agree with you.
Yeah. So, but nevertheless, I agree with you, John, that that's a tiny thing, right? That they're trying to blow up into a bigger issue, partly to smear Mamdani, but also partly to protect the rich, right? And that's the real issue at hand here. Why is the property tax capped? That they want to avoid that issue, the core issue, like the plague, right? Because almost all the donors of the right wing are super rich and love that provision. All right, last things go to our audience. Mad Mama 112 said on Super Chat, Mamdani's a true populist. Trump knows the value of populism. His polls are tanking and his base is rebelling. This is a ploy to look reasonable. So this goes to answer John's question, a lot of you guys did in the beginning. Why is Trump being nice here, right? One is, once he talks to someone and they're not mean to him, he's much more open, right? Two is, I think that Mad Mama here is right, that he's like, okay, I see now, affordability, I heard you on affordability.
We're the same.
Oh yeah, me and him on affordability, totally. And also me and him on populism, right? Yeah. And his populist credentials are being challenged now. JBay5850 is a member on YouTube and said Trump and Mamdani aim for America first in their own way, regardless of which side. Both should support this. And there is a little bit of that connection. Donald Trump's not really America first. He's been very Israel first, right? And but again, to the same point, his base is rebelling about his Israel first policies. So Mamdani got a lot of credit, including from Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene, on being America first. They're like, why should the mayor of New York have to go to Israel? That's crazy, right? Which he was asked about over and over again in the debate. So now Trump is also saying, okay, here at home, affordability, populism, that's what I meant, right? But at least it's politically savvy and it's turning around a little bit. Now, the last way you could think about it, and by the way, thank you for being members, and I love that you're part of the show and you make these brilliant points. Hit the join button below on YouTube, become a member, or tyt.com/join, wherever you are. But I think the last way you could look at it, which is enormously positive, and all of these things are true, is that Zohran Mamdani was so good at this that he went and charmed Trump without agreeing with him on anything, without switching any of his positions, and got Trump to seem to be agreeing with him rather than vice versa. And that is super well played.
That's crazy, yeah.
Yeah, so great job by Zohran Mamdani there. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.